Woman can't give birth. Then doctors realize what's growing inside of her. Keely loved being called chunky because she loved her figure and loved being curvy. She spent a lot of time at the gym and eating healthy because she was very conscious and passionate about her health. Keely made sure to take good care of her body. All of this was part of why her weight gain bothered so much. She kept working hard at keeping her body in shape, but it eventually reached a point where she had to find out what was happening to her body. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't ignore the mystery of her weight gain. It wasn't long before she noticed that she was only gaining weight in her stomach. It was also becoming hard and sensitive to the touch. She hoped it would all go away in time, but it didn't. She rapidly increased dress sizes, 8 to be exact, but she was still too scared to visit a doctor. Having grown up with my dad as a doctor, I'd become a bit of a medical coward, so seeing the GP was not my first option, Keely said. Without going to a doctor and her weight increasing at such a fast pace, she could only think of one explanation. Her growing belly, increasing weight, growing fatigue, and her longtime relationship with her boyfriend all seemed to add up to only one thing: a pregnancy. This made them anxious as they were not trying to have a child. However, everything made it obvious that it was a distinct possibility. When the pregnancy test came back as negative, they were both understandably surprised and confused. They assumed that it had to be incorrect, a false negative. So they immediately took another test. Again, it came back as negative. This meant that she would have to face her fears and go to a doctor. The answer she received when she went was not what she expected, however. She was told that she's merely being fat. She didn't know if there was anything she could do. Despite the doctors dismissing it, Keely knew something was wrong. She kept ignoring it because it wasn't affecting her life on a day-to-day basis. But why couldn't she be pregnant? Fortunately, the problems would be solved once she gave birth if it was just a pregnancy. But her stomach kept growing for a full 2 years. Month after month, it just kept getting bigger, until she passed out while she was at work. What the doctors said just made her even more furious. After the incident, Keely immediately went to see a doctor. According to Keely, it was a tough period in work, and when I was passed out, my GP put it down to stress. Without any other explanation, she simply had to continue living her life the way she did every day. Her belly was still hard to the touch, however. People were noticing and commenting on her growing stomach as much as she tried to ignore it. People constantly asked her about her pregnancy, to which she would have to explain that her doctor said she's just overweight. Anyone would have thought that I was 9 months gone. It wasn't the first time that I'd been mistaken for an expectant mom. Nor would it be the last, however. Keely was embarrassed about her appearance. People had seen me waddling around carrying this lump, and I'd been asked a few times when I was due, she said. She also had to start shopping for her clothes in the maternity section of the stores. I remember trying to shop for clothes in December 2016 and nothing would fit. I was skin and bone on top, then this massive lump and normal legs. The only thing that was going to fit was maternal wear. Keely did her best to get back to her usual routine, but when she passed out a second time, this became impossible. Her doctor offered her a different explanation this time. However, it was no more satisfactory than before. This time, her fatigue was blamed on her acne medication. She'd stopped taking it several months before and insisted there was another problem. Looking at me, anyone would have thought I was 9 months gone, said Keely. When she finally went to another doctor and showed him her stomach, he also assumed she was pregnant and opted to do another ultrasound. This finally explained what was happening with her body. Keely could tell something was very wrong as she watched her doctor's expression. I saw her eyes widen in horror, but the screen was blank. The look on her face said it all. When she said she had to get a consultant, I started to panic. Jamie did his best to reassure me, but I felt paralyzed with fear. Keely and Jamie couldn't have predicted what the doctor was about to tell them. They couldn't tell what was inside her stomach as the ultrasound screen remained blank. What they could be sure of was that her life was in danger. It could be a cyst or perhaps a tumor, but she'd need to take a CAT scan to be sure. The only thing that was certain was that Keely was not pregnant. The doctor let the pair know what had been detected was no tumor. It was, however, a cyst. The cyst was 25 centimeters thick and connected to her stomach. This explained her increasing weight, but her life was in peril and action had to be taken quickly. Within a month, Keely was sitting with a high-risk obstetrician to talk about the different options available to them. I'll never forget the look of shock on his face when the consultant examined me, she said. He said I had a large ovarian mass and the only option was surgery. He couldn't say what I was exactly or how big. No one expected to see just how big the cyst was. He warned me that there might be more than one and they could be attached to other organs, said Keely. It felt like she was signing away her life, even though she knew that her only hope was to get surgery. A month after her initial consultation, it was time for Keely to be admitted to surgery. In this time, her stomach had grown another 5 inches. As terrified as she was, she knew that if she wanted to get her old life back, then this was the only way. While her surgery was supposed to only take 90 minutes, hours went by as everyone waited with bated breath. A procedure that the doctors predicted would take about 1 hour ended up turning into a 5-hour operation. Though long, the doctors had successfully removed the cyst. It was quite a huge one, but when they weighed it, everyone was at a loss. The cyst turned out to weigh 60 pounds, equaling the weight of about 7 babies. It was as if she carried a pregnancy of septuplets. When she woke up, the hospital staff was all around her, showing her photos. At first, Keely was baffled that the hospital staff was around her, but then she realized why. I remember still being groggy from the anesthetic as they wheeled me back to the ward. An excited hospital staff was shoving photos in front of me, said Keely. She couldn't believe she was carrying that much weight around. After the removal of her cyst, which accounted for 1/3 of the weight of her body, Keely began to fully realize the impact that it had on her life. I lost sight of how difficult even simple things like driving a car or walking upstairs had become, said Keely. Losing my lump gave me my life back. Doctors were baffled by the mere size of the cyst, proving to be a medical wonder. When Keely woke up from her surgery, she too couldn't believe the sight of the medical alien that was living inside her. Today, Keely now has a 30-centimeter scar that runs from her sternum to her pelvis. Soon after the surgery, she was up and walking around, elated about starting her new lump-free life, even if it brought along new changes. For instance, as a result of the surgery, Keely lost her right ovary. Nevertheless, the doctors informed her that she was still able to bear children if she so wished. Even though she's never been pregnant, Keely, at 28 years old, already had stretch marks from her surgery. No matter how bad the stretch marks, Keely knew that she would rather have them than a 60-pound lump in her stomach. When Keely's family came to see her, they were surprised to see her so slim. The shock on my family's face said it all. I was literally half the woman I was going down, she said.